These lenses might be a great option for you if you're looking to pick up a new set of lenses for your kit. They are the Samyang Cine Autofocus lenses. Just to note, this video is not sponsored in any way by Samyang. They did send me these lenses to try out and do an honest review for, but I wouldn't do a review for these if I did not think that they would benefit some of you. Let's start with some reasons why I think you might love these lenses. The thing that is most unique about them is the whole set of focal lengths, which there's a 20 now, a 20 millimeter, a 24, a 35, a 45, a 75, and they have a 100 millimeter. What you're seeing right now is the 24 millimeter on an A7S III. And the unique thing about all of these lenses is that they are the same weight and size across all focal lengths, which, as far as I know, is unheard of for a set of prime lenses. They all feel incredibly light, but the reason why it is so fantastic that they're all the same weight and size is if you do a lot of gimbal work, you don't have to rebalance your gimbal after you switch focal lengths. So if you're like me, I'm sure you've lost many a shots and lost many a time trying to rebalance your gimbal. The nice thing with this is if you have a 24 millimeter and you need to punch in, so you want to switch to a 75, you can just swap it out without having to rebalance your gimbal. So to me, that alone makes the set something to keep an eye on. And it was the thing I was most attracted to before I even got my hands on these lenses. So they are all the same weight, they're all the same size, other than the 100 millimeter. But the other benefit to this is that they also have the same filter thread size. So you don't have to buy step-up rings, you don't have to buy different size filters. You just need a 58 millimeter filter and you can swap it out amongst all of your focal lengths. And I have found that has come in handy and just made my life easier while shooting. And if you can find a piece of gear that saves you time and makes your life easier while shooting, to me, that is worth the cost. And I have found these to be fantastic for that reason. Before we jump into image quality, I want to go over a few things about the body that I quite like. This is not a part of the body, but I do like the lens caps that they come with. They just stick on and stay on pretty tight for the most part, and I just find they're better than your standard squeeze to release lens caps. Another nice feature that Samyang added is this mode switching button. So by switching it to M1, your focus ring will obviously allow you to manually focus your lens. And obviously these lenses are autofocus, but you do have the option to manually focus. Make sure it's on M1, because if it's on M2, this ring now adjusts your aperture. So this specifically comes in handy with the anamorphic adapter, because the ring on the adapter will adjust the focus and this ring on the lens will adjust the aperture. This little button under the mode switching button is a focus hold option. So if you want to hold your focus, you can just press that in and that will keep your focus wherever you had locked focus last. The other nice thing they added was a recording light on the front of the lens and on the side. So it is green if you're not recording, and then once you press record, it's going to be a nice bright red. So that way, for those of you who are paranoid, if you actually press the record button or not, you know for certain that you're recording if it is red. If it's green, you might want to press that button. These lenses are fast enough for what I personally need. They are about a f1.8 across the board, except for the 100 millimeter, which is an f2.2. Although it would be nicer if they were faster, f1.8 is pretty solid for video. So aside from the fact that they're all the same weight and size and have like a focus hold button and this mode switching button, is the image quality good? Is the autofocus good? I think that's So I'll let most of these B-roll shots speak for themselves, but I have found that these lenses produce a lot of character, but potentially you may not get the lenses because of this. These lenses seem to add a bit of chromatic aberration. Before I got these lenses, I would add chromatic aberration to my shots in post. I quite like the look of adding a little bit of color fringing to contrasting edges in my shots. So the fact that these lenses will occasionally do that for me is one reason why I personally love them. I realize that that is a flaw. It is a flaw that some of you may not like, but it's something that I think gives these lenses a lot of character and makes the shots that they produce look really unique. The bokeh that these lenses produce is also pretty nice. They almost have a swirly look to them in certain situations, and that's another reason why I feel like these lenses have a little bit more character to them than other prime lenses that I've tried. The autofocus of these lenses is of course not as solid and as reliable as native Sony lenses, but they do a fairly good job for third-party lenses. They occasionally lose focus, I've noticed, depending on the environment and how much the subject is moving, but overall a fairly good job. However, if having reliable autofocus is a must-have for you, then perhaps you would be better off with a native Sony lens, but for the most part, I've been pretty happy with them. The other nice thing about these lenses is if you pick up Samyang's Anamorphic adapter, which is a 1.7 times squeeze, you can essentially make any of your lenses an anamorphic lens. So you just pop it on the front, flip the switch to lock it in, and you have your anamorphic lens set up on your camera. Now, I don't have a boatload of cash, so I don't have a bunch of anamorphic lenses, so I'm probably not the one to ask about a comparison video between how this looks and how your typical anamorphic lens looks, but I've been pleasantly surprised with the look that this adapter and these lenses produce. They're not the cheapest lenses, but they're also not crazy expensive. For most of them, you can get them for about 500 bucks. I think the 100mm is a little bit more expensive. Yes, that's a big chunk of change, but for the most part, for an f1.8 full frame prime lens, that's a pretty solid price in my opinion. So my final thoughts on these lenses, should you pick them up? I think if you do a lot of gimbal work, it's a no-brainer. Because they are the same weight and size, you don't have to rebalance your gimbal, so that's going to allow you to save time, and you will get shots that potentially you may have missed. And also, if you travel a lot, like I do, these things are so incredibly light. I usually bring way too many lenses, way more than I need to, so the fact that I can have like a 24, the 35, the 45, and the 75 all in one bag and not have to worry about lower back pain as I travel, it makes these lenses worth it in my opinion. The image quality is really solid, they are sharp, they produce pretty looking bokeh. Yes, they do produce chromatic aberration in certain parts of specific shots, but this is something once again that I find adds a lot of character to my footage. So if you are like me and you like that look, if you like the different B-roll shots that you've been seeing, then these will be a great fit for you. These lenses are also great if you want to shoot anamorphic because of that anamorphic adapter, so you won't have to invest in another very expensive lens. If having superb autofocus is a must-have for you, then you may want to look to Sony primes instead. Yes, these still are good, they still do the trick, and I have been pretty content with them, but they are of course not going to be as reliable as native Sony primes. I'll leave a link to these in the description, and let me know your thoughts on them in the comments below. I'm curious to hear if the features are something that interests you, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.